Hi everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our webinar today. My name is Trisha, and I'm part of the digital marketing team here at Amity. We are super excited to have our CEO, Paul Phillips, in here today to talk about the 10 best practices for calculating your customer health scores. Just a few notes for housekeeping. Feel free to join the conversation on Twitter by using our Twitter handles, @Amity, and/or hashtagging customer health. We will also be having a Q&A at the end, so feel free to ask any questions you might have at the box below. And finally, we'll be sending a recording following the webinar, as always. And yeah, without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic on to our CEO, Paul Phillips.
Thanks, Trisha, and thanks everyone for coming out today. We're excited by this webinar. I think this is a topic that we could talk for a long time and end up down the bar having a cold one and talking about it some more. So let's dive in. I'd just like to point out, if you take a look at the bottom left of your ReadyTalk widget, there's a chat window there and a little line to type messages in below that. If you have any questions during the webinar, just type it in there, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end, and we won't leave until we've answered everyone's questions. Great. So let's dive in and talk about customer health scores. Okay. So when you think about a customer health score, it actually isn't a standalone item. A customer health score actually exists as part of your early warning system, and we're going to be talking a lot about early warning systems and how they work today, and how your customer health scores fit into that. But as I was getting ready for the webinar today, I was doing some research into other forms of early warning systems, and a couple of them came up that I thought were pretty interesting. And one of them is I got reminded about one of the most mythical early warning systems, the canary in the coal mine. And so just so everyone knows, that's not a myth. That's a real coal miner with I think 2 canaries, and the canaries were the early warning system and the health score for the mine. And the key element of how the canary in the coal mine worked was if they tripped across a poisonous gas leak or too much coal dust in the air, the canaries would die before the miners got affected. And so a health score for the miner wasn't much of a health score for the canary. And that gave the coal miner time to get out of the coal mine in a hurry. And that's a key element of the early warning system, is the action you're going to take when a health score turns a particular way. And then I found this cartoon that reinforced that message, that just an early warning isn't enough. So it's not the easiest cartoon to read. So it's 2 coal miners looking at a dead canary, and one is saying to the other, "This means something, but I can't remember what." And so the action part of the early warning system wasn't entirely obvious to the coal miners. And so just a health score on its own is a conversation piece. Interesting to know, but you have to understand how it fits into the overall early warning system. And another interesting early warning system that I read about as research for today's webinar is the new tsunami warning system that was put in place in the Pacific Ocean after the December 2004 tsunami that devastated Indonesia and other parts of Asia. And there's a, if you're interested, if you're a bit geeky like I am, if you're interested in that, it's really interesting to read how they do that. But the last step in the warning system, the most important step in the warning system, are these big horns that are all around the coast of the locations where tsunami risk is very high. And those horns go off really, really loud. And the message that those horns send is get to higher ground this second. And so the horns are designed to get that urgency across, is go now. Whatever you have in your hands, drop and run. And that's a key part of the early warning system, is that, what's the signal and what's the action you're going to take when that signal goes off. Okay, so let's talk about the elements of early warning system. And believe it or not, there are, I found a few papers, academic papers, on the elements of an early warning system. So I synthesized a few academic papers for this. I was a little surprised to find them. But there are always 4 elements of an early warning system, and this maps onto customer success really, really well, maps onto what our customers do as they implement the Amity product, and I'm sure other customer success teams have the same experience. Is the first element is you have to have knowledge about the risks that you face. And without that, if you don't know that customers might churn if they're not getting the value that they signed up for, or that whole towns might get washed away if a 100-foot wave hits the coast, then the rest of the early warning system isn't going to be effective. So the first part of the early warning system is, what are our risks? What are our risks at the various stages of our customer lifecycle? What are the risks in onboarding? What are the risks in adoption? What are the risks during renewal? And you really have to have a handle on those, because that's the foundation for the rest of the early warning system. And once you know what those risks are, the second piece you need is a monitoring system. And you need a monitoring system that is going to tell you when you're approaching the point that some of those risks are becoming true. And there's a lot of elements to the tsunami early warning system. There's buoys that measure the height of the waves they're in. There's satellites that are taking real-time images, but all looking for both measures of the risk itself and early indicators that the risk is happening. And so when a wave gets to be 40 feet, it gets on small alerts. So you need a monitoring system that's going to tell you when those risks are true. And then you need a set of signals that are going to tell you what's happening, which particular risk is true, and its severity and its urgency. And then you need a response strategy. What action are you going to take when a signal or a couple of signals or multiple signals are true? And so what's your equivalent of running quickly off the beach or running quickly out of the coal mine? So those are the 4 elements of early warning system, and we're going to talk about them all today. What are the possible risks? How are we going to monitor for those risks? What signals are going to tell you what's happening, and what's your response when those signals are true? Okay, so that's the background about early warning systems and health scores. So let's dive right in to the 10 best practices. Okay, so the first practice is define your goals for the health score, because how you design your early warning system and how you design your health score are going to be determined by your goals. And as an example, these are all 3 techniques for getting an early warning system about heart health. The first is if you're healthy and exercising and you want to see if your heart is okay, you take your pulse. And if your pulse is solid and somewhere between 60 and 120, then you're fine. But if you have some mild signs of heart problems, high blood pressure, you might want to have some specialized monitoring tools like a blood pressure monitor. And but if you have heart disease, you're going to want an angioplasty, and you're going to want to know that it's this artery and not that artery, so that when the surgeon goes in there to fix it, they're fixing the right one. And so it really depends on who's using the health score, what actions are going to be triggered. If my pulse is 130, I'm not going to say, oh, time for an angiogram, time for heart surgery. Let's do a bypass. I'm at 140 now. So it really depends on what actions are going to be triggered and what other metrics might be impacted. So, for example, you might be calculating a revenue at risk score, and so your signals in your health score might impact the revenue at risk, and you'll want to consider that. Okay, so the first step is to define your goals. The second best practice is to start small and iterate. We've seen our customers from time to time implement elaborate signals and elaborate health scores, and 90 days later, they throw all of that out and start again because they have a better idea of what they need. And you'll just get there faster if you start small and iterate, design 1 or 2 signals, 1 health score, put it into action, measure the results, see what works and what doesn't work, make some improvements, redesign, and this is the process that almost all of our customers go through as they're working on their set of customer signals and health scores. And it takes, it can feel like it takes a bit of time, and it does, but this is how you get to the result that's going to work for you and your business. Okay? So best practice number 2 is start small and iterate. Best practice number 3 is be mindful of your customer lifecycle. So a set of signals and a health score that works during the adoption phase may not be anywhere near as effective during the onboarding phase. And because in the onboarding phase, it may be project management, operation signals that are really important. And in the renewal phase, it probably going to be business outcome signals and a business outcome health score that's going to be very critical. And so keeping in mind to start small and iterate. So I'm not recommending a full set of signals and health scores for every stage in your customer life cycle, but just bear in mind that the health score at each stage doesn't necessarily apply to the other stages, and you could end up going down the wrong path. Okay. The fourth best practice is if I could write this slide over again, I would say start with your customer journey, and start with your customer journey and the actions you're going to take. So what are the challenges your customer are going to face? Are they going to face a learning curve? Are they going to face getting buy-in? Are they going to face confusion? Are they going to, what are the obstacles that they're going to face? Because to a large degree, those obstacles are at least one major set of risks that you're facing. And then the next question is, given that our customers can face those possible challenges, what actions can we take that will impact that customer challenge? So if they're, one of the customer challenges is that they log in and maybe set up a profile and then don't know what to do to get started, then maybe a getting started guide, emailing them a getting started guide the day after they sign up. If building and maintaining confidence is a challenge that your customers face to keep the momentum going, maybe sending them a monthly report that shows them the progress that they're making and the results that they're producing. So really going back to the customer challenge, the customer journey, seeing the challenges, what are your tactics and strategies for addressing those challenges, and then you can design the signals that you're going to need to trigger taking those actions. So how are we going to know that this customer hasn't logged in? Or how are we going to say that this customer's adoption is lower than it was a month ago? How are we going to say that this customer's business outcomes are growing faster than their stated goals? And that's when you get into really thinking about the signals you need and designing the metrics that are going to get you those signals. Okay, so this is what I'm describing there is called a sense and respond system. So just keep calm and sense and respond. I've never used that keep calm slide before. But I'm entitled to one. Okay, best practice number 5 is define your signals. So this is really the heart of the matter. Now that you know what the risks and challenge, the risks you face, the challenges your customer face, the tactics or strategies that you're going to use when those challenges show up, now is the time to define the signals that are going to tell you that. And there's a lot of different ways of doing it. For today's webinar, I defined 5 categories of possible signals: business outcome signals, adoption signals, delivery and operations signals, customer feedback, a customer SAT score or an NPS score, and relationship signals. If your champion executive just left the company, it can really not matter what everything else says. And so these are, and there are other types of signals, but these are really the center of the plate, sources. And so you can have a neutral signal. So we have no signal for delivery and operations, and we have a negative signal for adoption and relationship, and a positive signal for business outcomes and customer feedback. And then the way you can think about how you're going to get those signals are you're going to take metrics that give you some insight into those signals and put some conditions around them. So, if you're looking for a business outcome signal, it's just a simple, is this business outcome greater than Y for the month? Or maybe it's a trend. So is this another outcome 10% ahead of where it was the previous quarter? Or another way of getting a signal from a business outcome is comparing it against goal or expected performance against goal. And so are we ahead of goal? Are we below goal? Or are we trending above or below goal? And so those are meaningful signals. You know, we're above goal, we're below goal. We want it to be 10% above last quarter, and we're 5% above last quarter. Those can really give you meaningful signals that you can turn into a health score for your business outcomes. Same with adoption. You can use logins, license consumption. You can use key feature adoption. There's a lot of different ways. Our customers are unbelievably creative. They constantly stun me with the way that they come up with measuring adoption. Delivery and operations are a little more straightforward. You know, is the onboarding plan on time or behind schedule? Or is it on budget or off budget? Or have there been any SLA violations in the last quarter? Those are examples of delivery and operations signals. Customer feedback, this can be number of tickets, the time to close tickets. This can be NPS or customer SAT scores. And, you know, there's a few different ways that you can do that. We have customers that, you know, just compare NPS to a minimum threshold. You know, it's a bad thing if their NPS is below 6. We also have customers that compare the NPS to the previous NPS score. So are we heading in the right direction? Is the NPS up or down from the previous score? Another way to turn NPS into a customer feedback signal. And then the classic is did an executive leave. That's you know, one way of measuring the health of the relationship. So define your signals and put some heuristics in place for measuring those signals and producing those signals. But whatever you do, allow for manual overrides. No matter how good your signals are, no matter how good your algorithms are, your CSMs that are working with your customers, especially if you have a high-touch business model, they have access to more computing power. They have access to better, more recent data, and so they're making observations. They're generating insights, and they're seeing patterns that that you would be really wise to allow them to go, this account, the algorithm says green, but I know it's in big trouble. And giving them an override can really capture some valuable insights. And you would be missing something if you didn't allow for that. Okay. Best practice number 7. So this is one that we were absolutely taught by our customers, which is the raw signals themselves are valuable and actionable, but a much cleaner, much more accurate signal comes when you benchmark your customers against their comparable cohort. So someone in the same industry or someone who's been using your product the same amount of time. And, you know, it's Olympic season, so you can benchmark them into gold, silver, and bronze. Typically, it's quartiles or quintiles. You know, they're in the top 25% or the bottom 25%. And so the idea is to benchmark your customers against all of the signals. And not just the roll up into the health scores, but all of your signals. And then those benchmarks can really be valuable because just looking at one signal at a particular value, you'll just know more about it if you know that they're in the bottom 25% of your customers for that signal. And you'll know a lot more about the account if they've moved from the bottom quartile to the second quartile, or if they've dropped from the top quartile to a quartile lower. That's an incredibly valuable signal because for a long time they've been in the top performers, and now they're in a lower group of performers, and you want to understand why that happened. And so the change in relative positions is a really, really valuable insight and signal, and absolutely worth the process of coming up with your benchmark scores. Okay. And after the closing ceremonies, you can go back to using quartiles and quintiles, but it has to be medals until then. And go Canada, go. Okay. So we've been talking about the signals that come out of the algorithms that you're using on your key metrics. Now let's talk about rolling them up into a health score. And the first thing I want to say is you probably want to roll them up into multiple health scores. And a single health score can tell you something, but it's frankly very coarse-grained, very high level, and you probably want health scores that will tell you how this account is doing in this product, or how this account is doing in this stage, or even better, how is this account doing at producing this particular outcome that they're interested in, or how is this outcome doing against this industry, and how is this signal doing against this industry. So, to calculate a health score, take the value of the signal, and we'll say that that's between 0 and 1, and then give that a weight. And so you're saying here that the signal from the outcomes is worth 50% of your health score, and that your signal from usage is 30% of your health score, and signal from relationship is 20% of your health score, and then just multiply them out with a little Excel magic, and you get the outcome is 38, usage is 0.09, relationship is 0.16, add them all up and you get a health score of 63, and then the really important step is, because it's really hard to tell the difference between 63 and 59, is turn that into, almost all of our customers turn it into a stoplight color scheme, red, yellow, and green. And so if you've got the right granularity on your health scores, a red, yellow, and green dashboard will really give you a lot of information. And frankly, this one's 63, this one's 72, this one's 59. It can be really hard to tell the difference between all of those three scores. Okay, so that's combining all of the signals into actionable health scores, and we really recommend multiple health scores if you start small and iterate. So start with one. See how all of this works together? Okay, best practice number 9 is don't be shy and share some of the signals and some of the health scores with your customers. Absolutely incredible goal here for your customers. They're really concerned with how are we doing against our outcome? How are we doing against our peer groups? How are we doing against our goals? And so you really have the opportunity, when you have a good set of signals and a good set of health scores, to provide report cards to your customers that will be just really informative and really helpful for them to course correct as they're adopting your product. And we we're big consumers of SaaS services at Amity, and a few of the services we use give us report cards. We're big HubSpot users. I'm sure you all know that. I'm sure you've all gotten HubSpot emails from Tricia and Matilda and Matthew, and we get weekly and monthly report cards from HubSpot, and I would say, we get 5 report cards, and 3 of them are just really, really valuable. I really look forward to getting them, and I really spend time with them, and I really talk to my team about, why our visit to conversion ratio went up or went down, and it's incredibly valuable for me. And so these report cards are a great opportunity for the customer success organization to create value for your customers. And it's also an opportunity to demonstrate your value. So if you were on my Demonstrate Your Value webinar from about a month ago, this is humble bragging, and this is the opportunity to really tell your customers what value they're getting. HubSpot gets a chance once a month to tell me how many visitors the website had this month over last month, and how many signups we had to webinars this month over last month. And it's their chance to tell me what a great job they're doing for us. And it's a great value for HubSpot, and it's a great value for us. And I can't recommend the concept of a check-in or a report card or a QBR for your customers. Okay, so business practice number 9, and the business practice, best practice number 10 is not only should you let your customers have access to the signals and health scores, you should be managing them yourself. And I know this seems obvious, but it would have seemed missing not to talk about this. So you need to build yourself a customer command center, whether that's an Excel spreadsheet or a set of dashboards in Salesforce, or a sexy set of dashboards and reports in a product like Amity. You need an ability to track your progress on the key signals, track your progress on the key goals, see where the surprises are, so that you can take action to move those signals and those health scores in the direction that you want. Also, a great opportunity for customer success to create value for the entire organization, because while customer success is on the front line with the customer, the health score and the signals are really a measure of the entire organization. And this is a chance for you to give a quantified view of how the organization is doing with its customers back to the entire organization. Really unbelievable goal. And then it lets you, identify where the signal levels are too low, where the health scores are too low, and put a plan in place to improve them. So those are the 10 best practices for creating your customer health score. Just to quickly remind you, so define your goals for the health score, start small and iterate. Don't forget your lifecycle stages. Start from the customer journey and the actions that you're going to take. Define your signals. Make sure that your CSMs and your frontline people have a manual override, because they really do know. Benchmark your customers. That's the richest set of signals that you can get. Combine all your signals into one or multiple health scores. Share your signals with your customers, and use your signals and health scores to improve your performance with your customers. So those are the 10 best practices for today's webinar. We're going to be sending everyone this recording and this deck sometime in the next 24 hours, so you don't have to write them down. And I see people are asking questions, and we're going to have a question and answer session in a couple of minutes. But first, a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor today, oh, look at that, it's Amity. Amity is your customer command center. It really is the tool for letting you produce all the signals that you need about your customer, seeing it as a command center, producing those updates that you want to give to your customer, the scoreboards and the scorecards for your customer. So Amity is one place to collect all of your data and to manage all of the elements of calculating signals, calculating a health score, and then putting in place the plan and executing the plan to improve them. And I love this slide. So this is the pre-Amity command center. We often see walk into a customer and we'll see that they have a whiteboard and that they're managing their customer success organization with. And it's actually pretty effective. I've seen some very large customer success teams managing with whiteboards. They do have a few risks. So those sticky notes, the glue can get dry and fall off. Every now and then someone will come along and clean the whiteboard and clear out your entire management system. And it's pretty inflexible. And so the Amity product takes the chaos out of the customer success process. We automate the task of gathering all of your data together and turning it into signals and health scores so that you can focus on your job, which is renewals, retention, upselling, getting referrals, having customer visibility, converting more trials, and contributing to the company's growth. And there's really 5 sets of features in the Amity product. The data integration, pulling it all together, our rules engine, our insight engine for turning it into signals and health scores, our workflow automation for both manual playbooks for onboarding and implementation and renewal, to automated campaigns for giving your customer the training materials and the insights and the scorecards that you need them to have. And then our lifecycle manager lets you see how you're doing at every stage of your lifecycle, and then reporting lets you see how your team's doing and how are all your customers doing. Okay, so that's the Amity product. If you want a customer command center that lets you manage everything in one place, Amity is a great product. If you'd like to see a demo, just let us know. Okay, so much for the word from our sponsor, and I see some questions starting to come in. Just like to remind everyone that the chat window is at the lower left, and if you have a question, just chat to us there, and we'll stay on the line today until everyone's questions are answered. Okay, question number 1, will the slides be available for download? Yep, we'll email them to everyone within 24 hours, along with a recording of the session. How do you recommend going about calculating the value from the signals? So that really depends on the type of data that you're looking at, and whether it's a percentage data or a large scalar data. But a rule of thumb is you want to boil the signal down to a number between 0 and 1, just so you can easily compare all of the signals, and you can easily multiply the weighting factor. But then the formula or the heuristic will depend on the nature of the metric that you're using for that signal. The idea of a report card is interesting. Do you have an example of one you could share? I do. If you send me an email at paul@getamity.com, I'll send an example from one of our customers, and you can see what it looks like. Another question is, what are your thoughts regarding cross-functional leadership, feedback on health score development before you settle on your scoring method? Absolutely. Getting buy-in into the health score really comes down to knowing who your audience for the health score is and starting small and iterating. You have to find the balance between design by committee and just shoving it down everyone's throat. And I think starting small, getting people's feedback, and iterating from there is a great way to move forward with the design of your signals in your health score and include everyone in the process. That would be my recommendation. But if the sales team is going to consume the health score, you'll want to make sure that they sign off on how you're going about getting that health score. Okay. Another question is, what are some of the key metrics a SaaS company uses to benchmark customers? Okay, so every SaaS company is different, but there are some categories. So almost every one of our customers that is doing benchmarking, the heart of the benchmark is the idea of a customer outcome. A customer outcome is the metric that your customers are using to measure your value by. So I measure HubSpot's value by website visitors, leads, webinar signups, landing page effectiveness, and those would be how HubSpot should benchmark Amity against our peer group. And so I think business outcomes is the most important. I think usage and adoption are the second most frequent elements of a benchmark. Are they using the advanced dashboard feature more or less than other customers who are fair comparisons are using it? So adoption and usage are used, but business outcome is used the most. The one that really doesn't work is ARR, MRR. Those are your metrics. I mean, they tell you about the health of your business, but they don't tell you about the health of their business. Okay? And then I have a question that is just a question mark. So that's a big question. I can talk for hours on that. So that's the current question list. Anyone have any more questions? I know you do. Great. Well, if that's everyone's questions, then we got done in record time, 12 minutes to go. That's absolutely a land speed record for me. And so thank you very much for coming out today. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And if you have any questions afterwards, just drop me an email at paul@getamity.com. I'd be happy to answer them. And you'll see the recording and the deck in the next 24 hours. Okay, and then our next webinar is on August 24th. We're particularly excited about this webinar because we're working with one of our partners, Triton's in New Jersey, and we've done a webinar with them in the past, and it went really, really well. It was a record setter for us. And so they're going to talk about customer success is a profit center, and the founder and CEO of Triton's is a customer success consultancy business and strategy business. And so they have a ton of experience with a lot of different types of customers. So they're going to be talking about customer success as a profit center, and that's on Wednesday, August 24th at 1 p.m. And I'll tell you, these guys do a great job, so I hope that you can make it out for that. And thank you again for coming out. And if you're interested in building a command center for your customers, just drop us a line and we'd be happy to give you a demo of Amity. Thanks again.